It's done, it's complete, it's finished. Finally, like 2 months later, Duo gets to talk about Castle Ruins. Are you happy? Is this what you wanted? Is this what you were waiting for? Because if so, then sit back, relax, get some popcorn. Welcome to today's informative discussion about Castle Ruins, everything there is to know, experience, money per hour. You know the drill at this point, I don't even have to point it out, but still. Yeah, let's begin. Pretty sure at this point everyone knows the class, the gear and all of that, but if you don't, I play Nova Awakening if that's relevant. For gear, I have roughly 281-ish brackets AP with 2 black star weapons, and most of the parties I had for this place had ±1 bracket, so very close to my actual gear score. And for DP, I believe I have 343 or 347. From my experience, that's more than enough to survive the place. In fact, I would recommend as an entry point 330-ish plus DP. That seems to be also doable. Essentially, my DP is probably above the required to start grinding the place. Other than that, I have full tier 4 pets, and I should say the more gear you have the better, because this area is very plagued with a lot of duel for spots pretty much every single hour, so the better gear you have, the higher your chance to actually keep your rotation. Unfortunately, Castle Ruins only has one theoretically efficient and usable rotation per server, so in my personal case, every single hour almost, I had at least another party trying to duel as for spot, so there is downtime. I did get away a couple of times because people recognized me, but more often than not, yeah, there is downtime, there is time wasted on a loot scroll on those duel for spots. And it gets even worse if you lose the duel and you have to change servers, in which case you have to duel another party to attempt to take their rotation. So prepare yourself for the PvP. I was informed very late into my testing that there is an actual outside rotation out of the castle area. Essentially, there is a secondary rotation you can do outside, which seems to be kind of viable, but obviously worse than the one inside. I was told you cannot summon the scrolls there. For the bosses, the scrolls themselves, you still have to go inside on top of the main party. So I guess you do have a secondary option, but for the most part, this area has only one rotation, which is inside the castle. It's extremely easy to do, I don't really have to show all of it. Essentially, if you ever did Red Battlefield, it's basically the same Red Battlefield map. You do a huge circle around that and you kill the packs in a party of 3. Now, I do want to point this out. We did try to be kind of optimal while grinding and testing with my Discord friends, let's say, but I do feel like there is a lot of room for improvement. Obviously, since there are 3 people and each of the 3 teammates has to do a little bit of pulling themselves, obviously the better you optimize that, the more trash per hour you will get. Essentially, every one of the teammates picks a pack of monsters and then you meet in the middle and kill them. So yeah, obviously there is that room for optimization. I mentioned earlier that there are scrolls and bosses. Basically, these scroll thingies will drop randomly throughout your hour on any one of the 3 teammates. They, I believe, last for 1 hour, after which they expire, so you have to summon them in your current grinding session or just as soon as possible. Normally, per hour you should expect, let's say, between 2 and 8 bosses per hour in total among all of the teammates, and it's just that. You summon the boss, you summon the scroll at the entrance into the castle, and it will pop a bunch of yellow lights, which you will very easily see on the map. Then you proceed to go back to doing the main rotation, and basically you do a full circle, trying to kill as many of those as possible, ideally all of them. From what I noticed, they have an RNG chance to drop the actual item required to summon the boss. basically out of all of those yellow lights, might be 15 of them or however many, not all of them are real elites, let's say. But still, you kill all of those and after that the actual boss appears. And do remember to turn on Agris points for the boss itself. That's important, it will boost your trash per hour quite a lot. From my experience, bosses on a blue loot scroll and Agris drop somewhere between, let's say, 250 and 300 trash, so that's pretty noticeable when you have 5 or more bosses per hour. Other than that, the last mechanic I could talk about is the Elvia weapon before we get into XL. The Elvia weapons just goes without saying, any one of the 3 teammates has a chance to spawn them. The boss, when he dies, also has a chance to spawn the Elvia weapons, and in my case I was told a couple of times if I have the weapon, I just simply move too fast on Nova and kill the monsters too fast, and it's annoying to my teammates. Basically, you just need one weapon for one person, not multiples. As soon as you get one of them, you will almost one-shot packs, so if you are not the person with the weapon, just try your best to tag every monster you can, just punch them once and that's it, because the person with the weapon will just one-shot them. I asked one of the shy teammates to tell me his trash loot. On one of my hours, I believe the last one, I had 20 or so minutes of Elvia weapon and he on a shy didn't have any, obviously, kind of wasted on a shy, and I ended up with, I believe, 7.1 thousand trash and he had 6,000 trash. So the person with the Elvia weapon kind of naturally gets a bit more trash loot, so keep that in mind. In this case, a shy versus me on Nova, with the weapons, I got 1000 extra trash in that hour. And that's pretty much all you have to know about the spot. So let's look at XL, at numbers, and begin the actual discussion. First things first, as always, money per hour, we begin with that. This is a conclusion. At this point, most people should know exactly how to read this, but if you don't, this is the breakdown for the trash loot per each individual hour. In my case, I do want to point out that in many cases, I still had to grind like 5 extra minutes after my loot scroll ended to finish my other teammates' loot scrolls, but I always turned my pets off. So for me, each of these sessions is exactly 1 hour. As soon as the loot scroll expired, I just turned off my pets. The weapons, how many weapons I dropped per each individual hour, this is all of them, not just my weapons, but my teammates as well. The bosses we spawned, this one says 2.5, I have no idea why, that's just how I noted it, and just go with it. The pictures, the first half and the second half, exactly all of the items I dropped. After hour 9, I just had to sell them because I wanted the actual materials. But yeah, first half and second half. This one is a half an hour session because we got kicked out of the area. In red, I tried to mark the hours that I considered to be really bad. Please do keep in mind it took me like 2 months to get in the mood to test this place and get parties to test this place, so I don't remember a lot of what happened per each individual hour. But usually the trash loot, the trash per hour should be between 6 and 7,000 with a blue loot scroll. And this is the session where I attempted to test Agris points, essentially an entire hour on Agris. You shouldn't do that, but I did it just for the sake of it. It was a very slow hour. This is my estimation of trash per hour with just the blue loot scroll on this session, so yeah, it was really slow, and this is what I counted for here, for this spreadsheet, not the 9,000 trash. Talking about trash per hour average from all of my hours, it was 6.3 thousand. I would say this is a bit inflated because I did most of these hours on stream, and let's just say there were certain cases where after killing the boss with Agris, I would forget to turn the Agris off and just grind half of the rotation with Agris points enabled. So I believe in reality, with optimal Agris usage, this should be 5.8, maybe 6,000 at most average. Ideally, every hour you want to use somewhere between 1 to 5,000 Agris on just bosses and maybe a couple of filler packs around them. So that's your target, 1 to 5,000 Agris per hour. In my case, I did have a couple of hours where I used like 10,000. So keep that in mind. The average overall money per hour from all of the hours, 230-ish million silver, which is pretty decent. It's pretty much on par with most of the other Elvia areas. Do remember, as always, I am valuing every single item. Essentially, at some point you sell the necklace enhancement, the ring enhancement. This is the true value of the place with my RNG. So everything is valued. Blue loot scroll and CaAasTleEe blessing, that's all I had. And then I tried here to estimate if I could clear a bit faster. I believe these days, if you have an optimal party, you should be able to get 7 to 8,000 trash per hour. So if I could get 7,000 trash on average, I literally just took the rare items and bumped them up in terms of, if I grind faster, obviously I should get more of these too, and simulated 7,000 trash per hour, in which case it's around 250 million silver on average. I believe that's what you should expect. With a kind of optimal party, it's around 250 million silver of value. The last thing I will say before we move on, these items, the red ones that drop at orcs as well, it doesn't seem like these have any higher drop rate at Castle Ruins. So if you're literally only interested in these red items, the shards and the hearts, you could just do orcs instead. They seem to have the same drop rate, and trust me, orcs is much easier to grind, because, I mean, not easier, but it's a lot more accessible. It's way less downtime. At Castle Ruins you have to wait like half an hour for the party to form, for the party to arrive, for them to buff up, if the spot is taken to duel for spot, if you lose to swap servers, if you lose your rotation in the middle of the hour, you swap servers. Essentially it's a lot of downtime and it's kind of inconvenient. And the spot is very laggy on top of that, so it's just annoying. Orcs is much more convenient in my opinion. Next up, we move into experience and skill points. This is my main experience chart, where I essentially tested every single area with the exact same experience buffs. The number itself doesn't matter. This is basically just a ranking with me trying to grind as fast as possible for all of these areas. It's common knowledge, I believe these days, that Bloody Monastery is amazing experience. Biragi, out of the other Elvia areas, Orc Camp is also really good experience. This is just experience from monsters. And today's area, Castle Ruins, is kind of, let's say, in the middle of the pack. It's just not great. It's not terrible experience, but it's not anything amazing. If you want to level up and you want to use a lot of experience scrolls, this just isn't the place to do that. You're basically wasting the scrolls if you use all of them here. I believe this one is the original test. This is the hour where I tested experience with around 5,700 trash per hour. The trash per hour is a bit annoying because the bosses will basically inflate this number, so the more bosses you have, the more inflated this number is without really getting more experience, but still. I believe this one was the original session, which is even slower. It's basically somewhere around the Elvia Imps, the duo spot in terms of experience, and this one at 7,000 trash per hour is my simulation of essentially trying to just grinding faster. This is experience you should kind of expect with a rather fast-ish party. And for skill points, this is once again the same chart, just focused on the skill points. For the ranking, Polyforest is pretty much the best, after which you get stuff like Cactums and all of these, you can examine them yourself. And today's area, I kind of have to scroll down for it, should be somewhere here, yep. Castle Ruins, the fast run at 7,000 trash, pretty much at the bottom of the chart. It's just skill points is completely irrelevant, just forget about it. The original, much slower session, even worse, so just pretend skill points don't exist. It's pretty much on par with most Elvia areas. Most Elvia spots have just really bad skill points. You don't grind Elvia for skill points, but if you were interested, this is the result. And for the last stop for today, it's Agris Efficiency. Once again, only turn on Agris for the boss. That's the most efficient way to burn the points, but this idea, this chart, most people know. It just came from the question of if you have your Agris points maxed out and you just want to burn them as fast as possible, which area in the game is the most efficient to burn your points. So essentially you're just using or grinding a full hour with Agris enabled. In this case, for CaAasTleEe Ruins, I have two entries. The hour itself where I tested Agris was really bad. We had duel for spots, we lost the rotation, we had to swap, we had to literally go AFK on ults to preserve the buffs. It was extremely slow. All I have from that session is how many points I used and my trash per hour. This is the result itself, 94,000 points used per hour, 9.2 thousand trash with again blue loot scroll and Agris, and really slow. This one had 2 bosses spawned. So I took this result and simulated a much faster run at a baseline of around 6,000 trash per hour, on top of which I added 250 trash for every single boss, and I simulated 3 bosses in this case. So this would be kind of 6,000 trash per hour ish with Agris on top and 3 bosses, and you're looking at the most points used out of all of the areas I tested before, pretty much on par with Orc Camp. So just a very point hungry place. The most relevant chart is the second one, because this is the actual efficiency chart, where ideally a spot here should rank as high up as possible, because this column, this comparison, literally says how do I make the most amount of silver while using the least amount of points. That's kind of what you want. That's why Golems is extremely efficient, that's why Turos is extremely efficient, and that's why people still recommend Thornwood as an area to burn Agris points. What I found out recently through Elvia is that Elvia Imps are also extremely efficient. If you want to grind a full hour with Agris, I would recommend this. CaAasTleEe Ruins, for today, it's the worst one out of all of the Elvia areas. It's here. Not really at the bottom of the chart, but definitely below every single other Elvia area in terms of efficiency. So if you are planning to grind a full hour with Agris, just anything else other than CaAasTleEe Ruins, any other Elvia spot is better, it's just more efficient. So in that aspect, I don't recommend it. The only thing I recommend, again, repeating myself, only use Agris for the boss and maybe a few filler packs around it. And that pretty much wraps up my review for CaAasTleEe Ruins. CaAasTleEe Ruins is an area that I kind of hate but don't hate. I like the spot itself, the mechanics, it's an interesting area, and the more party areas we have, the better. It's just that currently it's not fixed. Currently the area is just way too laggy and it's annoying. My parties, my teammates did sometimes tell me that they are getting single-digit frame rates, it's just really bad. The spot is way too plagued with duel for spots, because you only have essentially 1 rotation per server, which is annoying, and it just feels like a spot of mostly intended for extremely geared people. The siege guilds, the big guilds, essentially people who have insane gear and can more or less guarantee that they will win every single duel for spot. If you don't have very good PvP gear and you risk losing most of your duel for spots, like myself, I don't really know how to PvP, then this place is just simply not for you. You're better off going to Orc Camp to get the exact same rare Elvia materials. If you need those, just go Orc Camp. This one, CaAasTleEe Ruins is nice every now and then for maybe an hour or two every couple of weeks when you get some friends to grind with you, but as a reoccurring spot, it's just not efficient enough in my opinion. And I will leave it at that. Let me know in the comments what is your impression of the place, what do you think about Castle Ruins, what is your experience with a spot, maybe you like it more, maybe it's meant for you, and while you're at it, like the video if you enjoyed it to make me feel better. I will see you guys next time with a different project, and until then, as always, stay happy, keep on grinding, and I will see you next time. Bye bye!